After all that talk about trading down, the Vikings stick and pick, take a guard, Donavan Jackson. Was it the right move? Let's talk about it on the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day every single day, and your first listen on this, the day after night one of the draft, where the Vikings get Donovan Jackson, a guard out of Ohio State. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. Today is a very fun day for me, a very happy day for me, a day I did not think I would be this happy with. The Vikings end up sticking and picking and taking the guard, but the context surrounding that is going to make this a much less simple thing than it is, which is kind of a shame. Donovan Jackson is the easiest, simplest pick. Kwesi describes it in his post-game press conference. He uses a golf analogy, which I think is really apt for the way I feel about this. Like, I super see what he's talking about here. And if you've ever golfed, you get it, right? You throw one in the rough, and you could like take out the 5-wood. You can try to pound that thing down the fairway, right? Or just hit an iron and take 2 to the green and take your par or take your bogey and move on, right? The 5-wood out of the rough is how a lot of us, like slice it into nowhere. It happens. We all do it. All right. It's fine. The pros do it. And the way to avoid that is to just hit a normal shot. Just take it. It's a little bit play it safe, but it's more about don't overthink it. And it also plays into the directive that the Vikings have had all offseason. They have committed to fixing the interior offensive line. There are 2 major frustrations that Vikings fans have had in the last few years that I think this pick should really address. And the first thing is that they've just never been serious about the line. They've always been moneyballing it. They've always been grabbing Josh Klein's and Tom Compton's and Nick Easton's, and not really just get the guy. Just get a guy that does the thing. And they've never done it. They haven't drafted a guard since 1988, and that guy was Randall McDaniel. So just going into it and here we go. This is a guard. Serious, right? Spending a bunch of money on the other guard, spending a bunch of money on the center. Here's our interior. It's good now. We just went and spent an offseason on it. I think that's cathartic for everybody who's been frustrated by Dakota Dozier and Tom Compton and, Mike Remmers kicking inside and sucking. There is an appetite for this, right? So hopefully that's really cathartic for some of you that have been asking, holy crap, just get a guard forever and ever and ever and ever. But the other thing that I think it addresses is it's proof positive of kind of what Kwesi has been trying to tell us about the 2022 draft. Trading down, taking scene, it doesn't work out, right? Kyle Hamilton's great, and you traded past him to take a dude that's not on a team. This totally catastrophic failure. And this is an exact opportunity to right that wrong. The Vikings have trade downs on the board, and they could have tried to eke a little value out of this. Move down to pick 33, get a couple extra thirds, kind of sneak a little extra value with it. Or there is whatever Atlanta did, and we'll talk about the decision to decline those trades, or if they even had the decision to decline those trades, to the opportunity to decline those trades. We'll talk about that in a sec, but just in general, the idea of look, there is a player we know is good. He's on the board. We've got him. And I will talk a lot about in the coming days and today about Donovan Jackson and why I think he's so good. But clearly they have him high on the board, right? So this player that's this incredibly uncomplicated evaluation. He's on the board. We can just take him and go home and be happy. Hit the thing down the fairway. That's the way Kwesi put it. We could just hit a 7-iron down the fairway and set ourselves up with a nice shot later. And trading down and trying to eke the extra value and then get the next guy is a little bit like trying to take the 5-wood out of the rough, right? You're trying to do too many things at once. The way Kwesi described it, so he was asked probably around this time last year, I think is when this was. Maybe it was the summer, about the 2022 draft. And I think it was around when they cut Scene and Booth. And it was like, so what's up? And he was like, yeah, I've thought a lot about why that went wrong. And he said, I was trying to make a 33-point play. He was referencing the Colts game, the comeback from that same year. I was trying to get it all in one bite, right? I was trying to get more draft picks, get a safety we liked, do it all at the same time. And it kind of all ended up not working. And the lesson he learned was, you just have to take every decision as its own thing. Every moment where, you're not sitting there trying to say, okay, here's our first round pick. We have to solve every problem with it. You're going, there's a guard on the board. There's a trade on the phone. Which do I like more? And you're just making that decision. And they made the decision to take the guard. So now this line, an interesting question that is, interesting to maybe a lot of you, but it is not interesting to me, is where they rank. I just don't like ranking things. But if you like ranking things, very new question to ask where that Vikings line should rank. From left to right, Darisaw, if Donavan Jackson does indeed take the job day one, which I would anticipate that he does, but I wouldn't anticipate that he gets it for free. Probably has to beat Blake Brandel, right? And, all the other young guys that are like vying for it. It'll probably be an open competition and the rookie is part of it, right? Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, Brian O'Neill. And I know Christian Darisaw might not be ready right away. Might have to be just in school for that first week or two. But, wait a few weeks and then Darisaw's. And so you have this line that is made of like all maulers and Brian O'Neill, holdover from a different era, but good in pass pro, so whatever. But like Christian Darisaw wrecks face. Donovan Jackson can wreck face. Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, we've got lots of evidence of them wrecking face in Indianapolis. These are bullies, and it's a different style of ball than the Vikings have made a living on in this 10-year period of O-line woes. The cope, the justification was, they're smaller and they maybe don't have the size and maybe they'll get bull rush sometimes, but they're quick, they're fast. We can do athletic things. They're all athletes and we can get out there and run zone and, use space and get a run game going out of that. And some years that was true, right? We had some really great Dalvin Cook games in that era. And like 2017, right? This cool Jerick McKinnon year where we had the running backs to do that. Like sometimes that is true. And then sometimes it would be like 2022 or 2023 where it just fell apart and it was, absolutely getting bodied in the trenches every single game, or 2018, right? Where they got bodied in the trenches so much, Cousins couldn't function, that, you have this, it just wasn't right, the style, the brand now can be very downhill. And boy, that's a nice thing to be able to rely on when you've got your rookie quarterback, right? Not only are these guys all players that you like in pass protection, and Donovan Jackson in pass protection is awesome. I think the point of drafting him is pass protection. And what he does in the run is still very good. I still like it, but it's his pass protection to me that is like this polished, really awesome, really textbook thing that like there's a lot of teach tape on it, and keep your your young quarterback upright. So if the directive was, and I remember after the playoff loss, people were like, okay, so how do you feel about the line? He's like, yeah, some stuff's got to change. And Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi have kind of denied that this is like a direct response to the playoff game, but obviously that can't have helped. And they've changed the whole interior. I did not see that coming. A lot of stuff happened tonight that I did not see coming. But one of those things was, going into the offseason, I thought they were going to kind of keep moneyballing it and keep going, okay, maybe they got Bradbury under contract for another year. They got Brandel under contract. They'll maybe change out the right guard, but that's probably going to be it. Don't get your hopes up. I was super wrong. You could have got your hopes up and had them totally met. They spent a ton of money on two guys, a first round pick on another guy, and now they have an interior line that's like got an investment in it and has players that I feel very good about, all three of them. And, they were expensive, but there's a reason that they were expensive. The Vikings haven't had a line like this. You could argue since like pick your Adrian Peterson year, I guess. I would say 2012, 2013. Some people would say even that line was whatever because Christian Ponder was running around all the time. So maybe you have to say like 2009, Steve Hutchinson, John Sullivan, Phil Lodeholt, like that line. But it's been a while since we've walked into a season feeling like this is actually kind of a strength of the, it should be a strength of the unit considering the investment at least. 3 first-round picks or 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick on there. 4 of the 5 players are on expensive contracts and 1 rookie deal. Like that's a heavy investment in O-line. And I think it's appropriate to do that, right? You've got your quarterback, keep him upright. Blockers make the world go round. Another interesting thing from the Kwesi presser that he said was, the idea of like taking a guard and the value of taking a guard, which is what I'm going to get into next. But real quick, something to chew on. That he talked about, he was like, it's not so much guard tackle anymore in the league value wise. It's just get protectors. And I thought that was a really interesting perspective from Mr. Analytics, right? From the Wall Street, the quant, that I think we maybe try to segment offensive line value too much. It's a 5-man unit. And we try to go, well, the left tackle is the most important, and then the right tackle, and then the center, and then the guards are after. And we try to like rank the positional value, right? And in reality, if you have Dakota Dozier on your O-line, every defense is going to walk into that game targeting and manipulating and exploiting Dakota Dozier. You can't have that guy. It's a weak link system is how the analytics guys put it. And left guard was looking to be the weak link, right? They were going to try with Brandel again. And personally, I was like, okay, fine, give him another year. He was okay with Darisaw next to him. Like maybe that's going to work out. But we just kind of don't have to ask those questions anymore. He's just, okay, it's the rookie. I mean, we only have to ask the question of how good is a rookie going to be his first year, which you always have to ask with a rookie. And those two will probably compete in camp, and that's going to be that. And we can be pretty excited about it. But the value of taking a guard is also worth discussing. Plus, there are some trades that the Vikings maybe said no to, and we should probably see if the Vikings actually made the right move. So we'll talk all that out next on Locked On Vikings. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. As a small business owner, you don't necessarily have the luxury of sitting down and tanking out a whole hiring process, front to back. You've got other things to worry about, and you need somebody that works around the clock even after you clock out. That is what LinkedIn Jobs can do. It's always working to get you the right candidates in front of the right jobs and pair people with jobs and openings that match your culture, match their personality, and what they are looking for, what you are looking for. It makes it super easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. If you add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture, you can double your reach to qualified candidates. So 72% of small businesses say that LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Moving right along here with the Locked On Vikings podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. A Patreon video at patreon.com/LukeBrownNFL is coming. All right. And we're already working on it, underway. There is so much that I like about this guy. And I'm going to end up the show, and I'm going to round out the show with just like some of the technical stuff that he does that I really like. He's super, super polished. This is like an out of the box, ready to go, no assembly required guard. That's the draw here, is outside of the sort of standard bedrock level of, hey, he's a rookie, he's got to adjust to the speed of the NFL, things are different. And obviously with every rookie, especially on the line, there is that chance that you just don't make that adjustment. You're not, and there's no way to project it, right? So we have to be sort of respectful of that possibility. But outside of that possibility that applies to any rookie, this dude is as NFL Sunday of a player as they come. So I'll talk about that next. But here's the other thing. Right after the Vikings pick, the Houston Texans trade down with the New York Giants. The Giants give up a compensatory third and a third rounder next year to move from 33 up to 25. So people are going, wait, why didn't the Vikings take that deal? Well, part of it is the thing I said, the golf analogy Kwesi talked about, and, not wanting to overthink it, right? You've got a surefire thing. You've got a nice, or as surefire as it gets. I should be careful with my words there. But you've got a very safe pick, relatively speaking, right in front of you at a position you want. at a directive that you had. They clearly prioritized the interior offensive line this offseason. And so staring at a way to continue with that and to really, as Kevin O'Connell put it, kind of round out that project is there's a part of you that's just going like, whatever, just take it. And maybe you are losing a little bit of value, but like, holy crap, just take the freaking easy way out and just like do the thing will work rather than the thing that has a little bit of a chance to get 10% more value, but could totally blow up in your face as well. That's the Lewis Steen mistake, right? There was absolutely a chance, and maybe even a chance over 50%, it just didn't work out, that Lewis Steen, or if it was going to be Dax Hill, because they didn't know when they made that Seen or Dax Hill or any of those guys, Brisker was another guy, that or Jalen Peter, I forget how you say it. All those guys were going to be available, that you're going to be able to sit there at 32 and pick your pick of the litter at one of those guys. And Dax Hill was the only one off the board at that time. So they felt pretty good that they were like, we're going to have a lot of, we're going to have all these options, and we don't need, we're picking up a lot of value. We don't need the guy to be as good as Kyle Hamilton. We just need the guy to be close. That was the logic. And the reason it didn't work is because you open yourself up to a whole bunch of other outcomes that aren't the average outcome. Right? The average outcome for a player like Kyle Hamilton and the average outcome for a player like Lewis Seen, their determination was that wasn't too far apart. But you got the bottom outcome for Seen and, a top outcome for Hamilton. So the distance is super, super high. And the lesson you learn there is don't open yourself up to that much variance. Donavan Jackson is a high floor player and is kind of, I don't know, his ceiling is fine. He's he's already kind of at it. But it's a high floor player, right? There's a very small chance, relatively speaking, of this dude just being total butt and flaming out of the league in 3 years, like Lewis Seen was. I would be really, really surprised. I really like what I see there. So just in the abstract, forgetting the value that you could have had, which, if we just take the deal that New York struck with Houston and apply it, and let's just say that exact offer was on the table for 24. It probably was, if anything, it could have been even a little higher, but probably not, because the Giants don't have that kind of exact change. But if you just trade straight up pick 24 for 33.99 and an early third, the Vikings come out ahead on all the trade charts. That would have been a high value deal. And then they would have picked at 33. They would have had their pick of the litter. We now know what the board looks like. So they would have their pick of the litter of all kinds of defensive backs. They could have had Nick Emenwari still. They could have had corners. Will Johnson fell. That's one that we should probably talk about, by the way. Will Johnson was supposed to go, was supposed to be a top 10, maybe top 15 player. One of those guys that I thought, one of the things that shocked me, right? I thought he was like, you're never going to get this guy. But there was the injury thing. And I always made sure to mention, unless he starts falling because of his injury. But in that case, you might be passing on him for the same reason everybody else is, which is what ultimately happened. And Will Johnson falls all the way out of the first round entirely. If his knee does turn out to be okay, someone's getting insane value, but you're taking a risk. And clearly teams view it as too much of a risk. Otherwise, somebody would have pulled the trigger. So that's a thing. Anyways, so the Vikings could have eked more value out of this, right? They could have eked a middle round picks worth of value and just in profit, because the deal that the Giants came to with Houston was good for Houston and bad for the Giants. So if Kwesi's turning down that offer for Donovan Jackson, right? A, they must like Donovan Jackson a lot. But B, there's this philosophy, this play it safe philosophy. You pass on Donovan Jackson, and then later you end up, starting Dylan Fairchild that you got in the 5th, and he can't pull and he sucks. And you're going, and Donovan Jackson's playing great football over in Houston because you let Houston have him. You're going, oh my God, it's Kyle Hamilton again. And that's the thing that I can't quite square. And maybe somebody who is really mad about 2022 and also mad about this can square it for me. Do you want them to do the thing where they take the surefire player, or do you want them to do the thing where they try to eke out every little bit of value and incur more risk to get more value? What do you want? Or are you just going to want the one that works out? As for the Falcons trade that they made with the Rams, I'll be curious about that one. I think that one is a much more critiquable turn down. However, maybe not as much of a crazy one as you might think. If the Vikings give up 24 and they get picked 46 and an early first next year, you're essentially picking up an extra first rounder to move down. It's a long way to 22 spots. That's a long way to move back. And you are absolutely moving past a talent cliff there. So there's real value to that. It's not like the trade downs that I usually like, these little ones where you're still kind of getting a player you would have been happy with anyways, but you're just generating free value if you can swing it. That's like the Rick Spielman-esque, like the really nice trade down that you still felt like you were getting good players, right? Trade down, get Darisaw still, and pick up extra stuff. This would not be that. This would be a much more drastic trade down. And if you got a first rounder next year from Atlanta, call them a middling team next year. If you want to call them an early team, it looks a little better. It's actually about the same value as the Giants trade they turned down. So they basically said, look, we could generate another fourth-ish rounder of value by taking one of these trade downs, or we could take this guard we really like. They took the guard we really like. I respect it. Really, all of that is me kind of saying, okay, I get that it could have been more value, but it doesn't really bug me. But the reason it doesn't bug me, the chief reason it doesn't bug me, the main point here, dude good at football. Good football. He good at football. So let's talk about the actual football. That'll be next on Locked On Vikings. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are underway, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you can get $250 in bonus bets if that bet wins. It could be anything. It can be a money line for a heavy favorite like the Thunder. It could be a 3-point prop. It can be a spread or an over-under like your standard fare. Or even some kind of like same game parlay, which you can even draw up in the middle of a game. So if you think, there's a halftime lead, the Wolves are going to make a comeback and Naz Reid is going to be the one that drives it, you can quickly parlay right at halftime a Naz Reid over with a Vikings money or with a Timberwolves money line and put that in. Or you can do something more simple. Whatever it is, don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com, make a $5 bet, and if that bet wins, claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, enough of this value, this nerd talk, okay? This is a football decision, and the Vikings got a good player. I feel so confident in my evaluation of Donavan Jackson, both because this is not one of the times when I'm super against consensus, right? Like there are a lot of players I'm like way off of consensus on, and it's like nerve wracking, right? Like what is everyone else seeing that I'm not? Am I wrong? Am I actually, the person that's right on the island? We'll see how it goes, right? But it makes you double check. It makes me go and say, okay, what is everybody else saying? Why am I disagreeing with that? Am I comfortable with why I'm disagreeing with that? And then sometimes I'll say, I'm not. And then I won't go, I won't lock that in. And sometimes I'll say, yeah, I am comfortable with that. And I'll say, you know what? I actually do have Gray Zabel in the third round. And then he goes 18th overall to Seahawks. With Donovan Jackson, no such thing. Okay. Everybody just agrees. There's some people that think he's a second and not a first. And that's about as low as it gets. There's nobody looking at that guy saying that isn't an NFL player. Everybody who watches him goes, yep, good guard. Like, it's so easy. And the reason it's easy, so I talk a lot about how O-line is about recovery. And in the NFL in particular, right, at lower levels, you might just be so much of a better athlete that no one can ever get a position on you. But in the NFL, D linemen are really good. Everyone's got a stud. Every single team has some stud somewhere on the defensive line, whether it's a highly touted rookie or a youngster that maybe is not even living up to that potential, but is still worth. You got a game plan around him, like a Kayvon Thibodeau, right? That you have to pay attention to, or the team. Most teams have their Bosa or their Jeffrey Simmons or their whatever, right? Everyone has good freaking players, so no matter how good your O-line is, they will get into rough positions. Always. And watching Donovan Jackson, I've been really stunned to see how seldom he is in a bad position. He is so good at the original setup, and he is so good with his hands that what D linemen do to put him in a bad position is just completely toothless. And it's beautiful. It's so textbook. And that's the word that keeps coming to mind when I think about Donavan Jackson. Is this is the most textbook guard of textbook guards. Everything is exactly how you want it to be. It is always plan A because he just never needs plan B. Almost to a point where I'm going like, I wish I could see a little bit more of how he does recover when he gets in a bad spot, because as much as, hey, I mean, look, I'm watching him against Derek Harmon, and in Michigan State, that's got a D-line. Like I'm watching him against NFL level talent, but they're all still youngsters in college. When he shows up and he's got to go up against the Jeffrey Simmonses of the world, the Kenny Clarks of the world, right? Like these established NFL talents. How is that going to go down? It is maybe a question just because college didn't challenge him enough. Which, when you're in the Big Ten and you're playing in the Natty, you didn't get challenged enough is like kind of informative in and of itself, right? So I love that, but in particular, and this is, I think, something you have to be confident that you know why you're thinking this. The way that he gets set up with his feet are very quick. He's very quick to quote unquote build his house and get into a nice base position where he can accept a bull, he can throw a punch if he needs to, he can parry a punch if he needs to, and then like work with his hands. His hands are awesome. He's very good at getting his hands kind of right in the armpit, like kind of right under or like into the tricep. And if you want to get someone's hands off of you, if their hands are like on you, grabbing you by the shoulders, right? It's like a self-defense thing. Grabbing under the elbow or under the armpit or anywhere like on that tricep and then pushing upward is going to be one of your best leverage tricks. And he's great at that. But for O-line, you're not just trying to defeat the hands, right? You're trying to move the guy. So then you transition it to like getting a hand on the shoulder pad or on the breastplate and then driving from there. And that's awesome. One thing that Oregon in particular did a lot of, and this is because of Derek Harmon's play style too. So it was a lot of reps against Derek Harmon. Derek Harmon loves to, like, he is never going to like engage and try to bull rush you back. That was never really his style. He was not a through kind of guy. He was a get to half the man and get the angle and get around the guy, not through the guy, knife through the gap kind of player. And I thought he was overly reliant on that, which is why I wasn't as high on him. But when you're doing that, the challenge of that kind of player is that it's a lot of playing brick breaker. It's a lot of like shuffling back and forth when they jab to your outside and you have to respect that speed, and then they cut to the inside and you have to get your hips around and get yourself shuffling really well. Oh my God, Donovan Jackson is good at this. The kind of get your hips back square is, you can tell, instinctual. The second he feels like he has a little bit of control of you, he wants to square back up and he wants to deny that half-man relationship. So rule of thumb, O-line versus D-line. D-line wants to be on half the man, right? If I'm going to try to get through you, I'm going to attack half of you. Half of you won't be as strong as all of you. O-line does not want to only be able to use half of them to block. So O-line wants to be in a full man relationship, straight up, square, head up, hips square to the line of scrimmage. If you want to go to the left, I'll come left with you. You want to go to the right, I'll come right with you. D-line wants to be able to attack just one shoulder so that your other hand can't come in and help, and I can be stronger than you. All of me can be stronger than half of you, and I can open you up like a gate and get through. You can watch basically any guard you don't like, and you can watch their L's, and something like that is happening, right? Like they get opened up. I use the phrase "open the gate" sometimes because it's a cornerback phrase, where you open up your hips and you kind of stop being a wide barrier. You become a little skinnier and easier to run past. And with O-line, if it's very much the same geometry. You want to be like wide. You want to keep yourself. You want to be as difficult to get around as possible, right? So if somebody can get an arm up into you and then open you up, then you're suddenly skinny and you're easier to run by, right? You get opened like a door. This does not happen to Donovan Jackson. And even if he does end up having to sort of compromise his angle to like get to somebody that's rushing really hard to his outside, the second he gets a hand on you, and oh my God, those paws, man, he a lot of times he'll win with his arms, just getting a good punch on someone, stopping their momentum entirely, and then allowing him to catch back up, square back up, and then you're just cooked. Like you can try to go inside or outside or whatever, but he's just going to shuffle back and forth like he's defending you in basketball. This is all so plan A. This is all so technique. This is what you drill. And it's a really well-coached line. It's Ohio State. Another guy went in the first round. He was hurt in Josh Simmons, and that center's probably going to get drafted too. So, it's a well-coached line at Ohio State. Big surprise. And you can really, that kind of coaching, when you have all of those things and you can tell they have the right muscle memory coming right in, means that your path to being an NFL-ready starter is way shorter than someone who I have to deal with the fact that your technique isn't right. I have to rebuild the way you set up for a pass. I have to rebuild the way your habits with your hands. I have to break habits and then build new habits, and all that all takes time, and that's time the Vikings don't have to spend on Donavan Jackson. He's got the right muscle memory. You can take him as he is and say, "Here's our playbook, learn it," and that's all he has to worry about, right? That still means that he might not be first team instantly. Might still be Blake Brandel to start. I think that would be a responsible way to go about it. But I would very much guess that Donavan Jackson is taking the start sooner rather than later. And that's not about deference to a first-round player. It's about the fact that I think the dude's really good at football. Tomorrow is day 2. I won't be live. I'll be popping around other people's shows. So if you're listening to other Vikings live shows, you might catch me there. But otherwise, I'll have a show for you in the morning, recapping whatever happens to the Vikings on day 2. They're picking at 97. Decent chance they don't pick it all on day 2. They could trade down at 97. They could trade up. A whole bunch of things can happen. Whatever it is, you and I, we'll get through it together. I'll see you all tomorrow. And as always, Skull.